All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the American Bowhunter, the official podcast of PSE. I'm your host, Zach Plasica, and the hunting season is approaching. And there's typically, it seems like, two different type of hunters. We got guys that just casually hunt, and then we got guys that are chasing mature big bucks. And that's what we're talking about today. So I've got Joe Long on here, who has an extensive background in the bow hunting and just the outdoorsman side of things, and is both a compound and traditional bow hunter. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So we're about, 2 months out? Month and a half? About that. I believe it's the middle of September is when we start kicking off the 11th or 12th this year. Yeah, so everybody's kind of, we see it already. People are starting to finally get excited again to get in the woods and kick off the hunting season. But what about for you? When does this start for you?
So last week when we were talking about doing this, I mentioned, I don't summer scout. Well, I didn't mention that I do a few things. When you said scouting, I thought you probably meant like running around in the woods. We're in coastal Carolina. It's very hot. There's a lot of bugs, a lot of ticks. One of the worst things in the world for me would be I can't remember the name of that virus that you can get from a deer tick where you can't eat red meat.
So listen, so that's a real thing, right? So it's wild because I've got family in Kentucky, right? Mm-hmm. And they work over at Fort Knox. For whatever reason, so my aunt's husband, he got that. He can't eat red meat. Mm-hmm. And there's a handful of other guys that work over with him that are contractors that have gotten those tick-borne illnesses where they can't eat red meat, and all of their symptoms are different. It's pretty weird. Like, so he gets hives, but other guys he knows goes into like anaphylactic shock. Some of them have blood pressure issues, mm-hmm. heart rate issues. And I thought it was interesting that it's like in the Fort Knox area, it's pretty heavily focused. So I'm like, what do they got? Like biohazard ticks or, some kind of crazy.
I'm not sure what it is. I've got some friends in Florida. They do a lot of deer hunting, pig hunting down there, and they got it in Florida. I haven't heard of it much around here, but I still don't like taking any chances. Plus, we have those chiggers and seed ticks as well. So
yeah. So what is your preventative measures that you use to help minimize them in the early season?
Permethrin. Yeah. A lot of people like, it causes cancer. Well, everything causes cancer, unfortunately. But I spray everything I wear: boots, socks, pants, shirt, hat. I'll spray it with permethrin. Start of the season before I even go in the woods, just to get a good coat on it. And I found that helps tremendously.
I've noticed too, and you don't have to do it very often. Mm-hmm. So like I do it at the beginning of the season, and then typically I might do it one more time, but it seems to work long term.
It does as well for turkey season whenever they start coming out in the spring.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad around here then too.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to sidetrack that conversation. Getting back to what I do. So I don't scout boots on the ground a lot. But what I will do is visit some I'll use historical data, visit some feed trees, and also glass fields in the evenings. Just kind of taking inventory of bucks, because this time of the year, as well as up until September, right when our season kicks off, the bucks are still in bachelor groups. There'll be out 5 or 6 of them out there together, having fun, doing what bucks do. Just hanging out, feeding. So I'll take inventory like that, and then checking the feed trees. Around here, we have plenty. We have persimmons, we have white oaks, we have water oaks, we have red oaks, black oak, we have all that stuff. And they all drop at different times of the year. But I will go check those areas to see how the crop is doing, because it depends on, the weather we had that year as to how good the crop's going to be. Just throwing this out there, this year we had a dry spring, a lot of pollen, which transitioned into a more wet first of the summer, which I believe, don't take it as gospel, is going to throw a pretty good acorn and feed tree crop. So I will go check those areas, as well as a few scrapes that are traditionally open at this time of the year, just to see if they've been hit at all.
Okay, so you are going out a little bit and kind of venturing out. Do you usually try to do most of your stuff from a distance, or are you actually walking up into the woods and physically checking those?
Now, the feed trees, I will walk into the woods, binos, checking the top of the trees, looking for acorns, looking for persimmons. Persimmons, usually if it's loaded down, you can see them without it, binos, but I will walk in the woods.
So when it comes to the persimmon tree side of things, like how long do they use those as feed trees?
So the persimmons around here, they usually drop, I want to say the end of September, well, depending on the tree, mid-September all the way through mid-October, they'll be dropping. We also have black bears around here. Black bears see persimmons, they'll climb the persimmon trees and start knocking them all down. So it kind of depends on the area you're in, truthfully. But that's when they drop around here.
Okay, so persimmon, is that one of the bigger focuses for you? Because there's so many crops in the early season too, right? Soybeans right now, corn. I mean, so are you kind of, do you favor one over the other when it comes to big, like mature deer? Like you'd rather focus on something in the woods, like persimmon trees and stuff, over field crops?
Yes. So we can we'll get to this moving through this talk here, but most of the time bigger deer are not going to be found out in the wide open. This time of year they will, because they're in bachelor groups. There's two reasons why they're not going to be out in the wide open. Number one, they're big deer. They act different. They're a different creature. And number two, right now, there's an older gentleman, I can't remember his name, coined this term. As soon as their velvet drops, that's when they start getting their brain cells back. They're hanging out together in bachelor groups. As soon as their velvet starts to wear off, starts to get itchy, they'll start rubbing on trees, things like that nature. That's a hormonal change. And at that point, those deer are not going to be friends anymore. Like you'll see deer together through the summer, hanging out, best friends, not one without the other. Around mid-September, late September, you won't see that anymore. They're not friends anymore. They're about to start competing for breeding. They're competing for ground, and at that point, they're going to try to kill each other if they come across each other.
So typically, after like the second week of September is when they start that process.
Around here, now it differs throughout the United States in different areas. Our rut around here is usually the middle of October. It's weird. You go out west or farther north, their rut is, middle of November.
Yeah, it's interesting. And for me, whenever I typically think the rut, I usually think cooler weather, right? But it's not like that here. It seems like ever.
It's really not.
It's always hot. And I think depending on who you ask around here, right, there's historical data, there's a typical window for it. But depending on who you talk to around here, everybody has a different date of when the rut is.
So historical data, I'm going off what I see in the woods. Middle of October is peak rut. However, it will keep running. Like there will be another one and sometimes even a third one towards the end of December. I've seen bucks chasing does and breeding does and, around Christmas, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Peak rut around here is usually around October 15th, 16th, 17th, something like that. I had a thought. What was I going to say? Goodness. You said it's weird for some people. Sitting in a tree, 90 degrees, you're sweating, and then you see bucks chasing all over the place. That's usually something you see in November when it's like cool, crisp, and it's a great morning. Now I'm getting chewed up by mosquitoes and watching deer chase. It's kind of fun.
North Carolina is, I guess the Southeast in general is pretty similar like that. It's warm. Seems like year round. We get 2 cold months. It's like January and February, and then it's back to warm again. As a hunter, you look at it and you're like, oh man, it just doesn't feel like hunting weather.
Unfortunately, no. So you got to invest in some good sweat wicking clothing and try not to get too sweaty going to the tree stand.
Which seems like nearly impossible. You have to move. Like that's one of the things, and we've talked about it before, is like your woodsmanship skills, how they evolve and how you develop them. The best way to develop them is obviously being in the woods. But learning to move through the woods in a meticulous, manner so that you're not disrupting it, and two, with us here, trying to stay as cool as possible to get where you need to go.
I like to call it moving like a deer. A couple of steps, give it a second, look, a couple more steps. Takes a little bit to get to the tree stand. Oftentimes, if I'm hunting in the morning, it takes me a while. But in the afternoon, like I'm leaving sometimes 2:15, 2:30 to go to the tree because it's going to take me an hour and 15 to get there sometimes.
Yeah. So I noticed one thing too, which is easy for people to do. For some reason, there's a rush to get somewhere, right? To get to that stand. We see a lot of people, they want to rush to their stand versus take their time and move through the woods. And I question, because I find myself doing it sometimes, like, oh, I need to be there. Like by this time, I've set a hard date or timeline for whatever reason. And I wonder, like, why are people like that? What causes guys to feel the need to rush? Because then you just make mistakes along the way.
You're making mistakes. Also, whenever around here it's very thick, you know that. When you're rushing through the woods, straight beeline to your tree, all that vegetation hitting your clothing, hitting your skin, you're leaving residual scent that they can pick up on, especially around here. I mentioned deer being a different creature. They are, and I can use examples when I go out of state. Deer don't really pick up on my ground scent, like where my feet touch, as much. And if they do pick up on it, they're not coming unglued like that and taking off. Around here, bracelet keeps hitting. Around here, if they pick up on, I've seen mature deer pick up on ground scent and just come unglued and leave.
Yeah. What do you think that is the difference? I mean, so Eastern North Carolina, we're a very pressured state. One, because I think the big reason is the dog hunting side of things that goes on here year round. They are training dogs. They are in the woods all year. And it seems like these deer are just incredibly skittish versus when I go out of state somewhere like Kentucky or something like that, the deer just seem to be less pressured, less on edge. And you can get away with a little bit more as far as getting in and out of the woods, it seems like, versus here in North Carolina.
You're absolutely correct. And I don't know exactly what makes them do that. It could be the pressure, quite possibly. Could be the dog hunting. I don't know.
It's interesting though, but because it's so, I mean, I look at it here and I mean, hunting Eastern North Carolina to me is very difficult. I mean, we've said it before, if you can hunt here, you can probably hunt just about anywhere, just because it's so thick, it's so hot. You've got everything kind of working against you as far as elements go. And on top of that, the deer are just on edge all the time versus going out of state. They just seem a little bit more lax. Again, you can get away with a little bit more. I wonder what the difference is being on the coast and where we're at versus, maybe more inland or, out of state somewhere. I haven't been able to put it together. And the only thing I can think of is the dog hunting side of things.
So I've been in areas where deer have not been ran by dogs. I do a decent amount of urban bow hunting around neighborhoods. I have permissions to do that. And I, obey the state rules for not hunting a certain amount of distance away from a dwelling. But a lot of those deer have never been ran with dogs. And they grew up around people, like they're feeding 50 yards in the woods right next to a yard where somebody's mowing. But as soon as you step foot in the woods and they pick up on that, they just come unglued.
It's in the air.
It's got to be.
It's chemtrails, as Joey would say.
Chemtrails.
So early season, right? As far as getting in the woods, everyone gets excited on opening day, right? To get out there. Will you hunt opening day or no matter what, or do you wait for conditions to be right before you get in the woods to make a move on, a deer that you're after?
So usually I will hunt opening day just as a nostalgia thing. It's opening day. I want to be out there. I did it when I was a kid. And a lot of times around here, I'm not very successful on opening day, but I'll still do it. I won't say conditions are dependent on that, but after that, when it's really hot, like September, October timeframe, like 90 degrees, I will not hunt on a day where I don't have the correct conditions, whether it be moon phase, the wind that I need, a front pushing through, some type of storm front pushing through, something like that.
So when it comes to conditions, right, there's a lot of things to consider. We, and which is overwhelming, especially for new hunters. It's like, man, there's so many different variables I need to consider. And one of the big ones being weather patterns. What are the ideal, if you're getting in the woods and you're on there's a specific deer that you're after, what is but before the moon phase, what is the weather patterns you're looking for?
So I'm just looking for storm fronts pushing through. So we get a lot of rain around here, especially in the early fall. If there's a deer that I'm looking for, a deer that I know is there, I have an idea where he's bedding at, or just I want to go hunt a big deer, I don't even know where there's a big one at, I'm going to use that storm front. I'm going to push in whenever it's raining, get up in the tree, and then wait on that rain to quit. Because as soon as that rain quits, I've seen around here, that's when they're up on their feet. Could still be 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, still hot, but they want to get up and dry off. Stretch the legs, because they're and generally they're not going to be moving around in like a downpour.
Right.
So as soon as that rain quits, I want to be in the woods. I want to be in the tree and ready.
So you're using the rain as like almost like a cover to get into the woods.
Absolutely, because rain creates noise. It makes the leaves soft. You can move through the vegetation a lot easier, as well as just that cover noise. So it's not really going to do anything with scent. A lot of people say, the rain washes my scent away. Not really. If you've been around tracking dogs, you'll see that rain doesn't really bother them. They can pick up a deer's scent during the rain or right after the rain. And a deer's nose is right on par with a lot of tracking dogs' nose, if not better.
So that was going to be my next question, because one of the things that I've read or noticed just being in the woods is they say that rain or humidity. I was actually listening to I don't remember who it was, one of the traditional guys podcast, and they were talking about they had like a biologist or somebody come in that talked about the like deer's nose and then how humidity and water molecules and everything can amplify scent. And that was one of the things that I was curious about is, because I think people have a misconception that, like you talked about, it washes the scent away. It doesn't. They say that the water can actually, and like more humid days can foggy days can ruin your hunt because it amplifies the scent that you leave behind, which is kind of interesting.
And the water molecules in the air, if the wind is blowing along with the fog, it's just going to carry that scent even farther.
That much further.
With whichever way the wind's blowing. And then you take into account thermals, and then you have the prominent wind direction for that day. There's just a whole lot of stuff that goes into it. Yeah,
very interesting though, because you see a lot of guys, like you would think like, oh, I've got the fog to my advantage. So visually and everything, you're like, oh man, I'm covered. But turns out, their biggest advantage, their nose, they can smell you that much easier.
Absolutely.
That's what the one thing you're constantly fighting is, or trying to beat, is the deer's nose, which is what you really have to,
On your approach into the woods, that's that should be your main focus.
So what about this? So like, let's say weather conditions, you're headed into the woods and you don't have a strong wind, right? So it's very still. And it's just hot. Maybe it's humid. Is that a day that you'll set up in the woods because there's no air really moving through to carry scent?
So yes and no. There will be scent moving, whether you have a still day or not. There's this thing called thermals, and that is dependent on the air pressure and the sun, basically, especially in the mountains. You got to think heat rises. So say you're set up on a hill or in the mountains, wherever it may be, Appalachians. I'll use the state that I hunt quite a bit out of state, New York. You set up on a side hill. Say you're going in the morning. Okay, you got your spot picked. You're like, I'm doing this. Set up on some deer that are down in ag fields maybe, and you're up on the hill. You're going in and it's dark. Sun's not up. As you're going into your spot, the thermals, because it's still, the sun is not up, creating the heat. Heat rises, makes air rise. Your thermals can be pushing down that hill, whether you have a prominent wind direction, left or right, up and down, whatever it may be. As soon as that wind stops, you get the thermal pull That's what they call it. Now, when that sun starts coming up and it's heating up the side of that hill that you're on, that's when your thermals are going to switch, start moving up the hill. And hunting in hill country like that, or mountain country, in most cases, deer will be feeding down low, and then they will move up top to bed. So if you're moving in the morning, right above those deer, they're getting you. They're going to get around you somehow. And then if they're coming around you and going up top to bed, and that air is pushing up, they're going to get you that way too.
So that's where strategy is so important. And you kind of got to know what the deer are doing prior to moving in there then.
Absolutely. And also using micro terrain. I will
So define micro terrain.
So the example I just gave, you have a hill. You're hunting on that hill. The micro terrain on that hill will be a small ridge, a small bench, and what I like doing is finding a small drainage or a creek flowing down that hill. Because as the day's heating up, your thermal pool's going up, you're next to a creek, water flowing. In most cases, that water is going to be a lesser temperature than what the air temperature is. It's going to cause your thermals, your scent, to fall down into that ditch, the creek bed, if you will, or that drainage, and then suck down the hill. So as everything else is pushing up, your scent's still going down. That's using micro terrain to your advantage.
Okay, so that's smart. So that's where the strategy comes in understanding terrain and how these things work. So what about when going back to thermals, right? So do thermals have as much of an impact on, say, here in Eastern North Carolina, where we're at cold, we're at sea level, it's very flat, versus, somewhere that's more hilly, like maybe Kentucky or like New York?
So they act the same.
That's what I'm curious is, like, how do you use the thermals to your advantage where it's flat here? Because how do you get below or above them?
I'm giving away secrets here. So you said flat. It is flat here. However, sea level, there is still terrain difference. Like, we have a lot of water. We have the ocean. I mean, I've killed bucks 15 yards from saltwater, like on the beach. There is still terrain to be used. During the fall months, I want to say November-ish, and through the rest of the season, when it starts to cool down, the ocean is going to start cooling down as well. Our area is tidal. Like, we have brackish water, which moves into salt water. That ocean starts cooling down out offshore, causing the water temperature inshore as well to start dropping. You got a hot day, 80, 85 degrees, something like that. That water temperature is still, in that time of the year, is going to be lower than what the air temperature is. So guess what your thermals are going to be doing? Pulling towards the water, especially in the evening. And you'll find, especially around here, mature deer, as well as just deer in general, will bed close to or in the vicinity of some type of water. And that's the reason. Their back's covered by water. They don't have to worry about predators unless you're using a boat or a kayak. And then they have the scent pushing straight to them. So they can tell if something's coming towards them with the water at their back.
So using water as an access for somewhere around here would be a very good strategy, depending on, I'm assuming, where you're at.
I do know some guys that are very successful.
Yeah, I know. Brian, he bought a boat specifically for that, and he had some good success last year. But you've done a bunch of kayaking in and stuff as well.
I haven't done it in the last couple of years because I haven't really had to or had the time, because that is a lot. You got to get out there. You got to load up your kayak, get all your stuff strapped down. The worst thing that could happen to me is losing my stuff if my kayak flips. Actually, the last buck that I kayaked out, I almost sank the kayak because I didn't realize I had a leak whenever I went to launch. And then he was probably 170-ish pounds, 175, maybe 180. I'm 220, another, 180 plus my gear. I'm kayaking out, and all of a sudden I notice that water coming up the side. I'm like, oh no, paddling harder. I was right along the bank, thankfully. So I got to the bank and was able to get everything off and then empty out the kayak, go around, and I ended up having to drag him out instead of kayaking him out, which was not fun. But yeah, that's my worst nightmare is losing my stuff in the abyss.
Yeah, no doubt. I was in I think we were in Alabama or Georgia, and we were on a river down there, and we were bow fishing, and we flipped the boat. I lost everything. Oof. Like wallet, phone, a gun, everything. Luckily, it was shallow. I was able to recover. I actually found the pistol, but everything else was like, I had to redo everything. It was a nightmare.
Let's see, worst nightmare for me.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That was not a good time. So wind and thermals, you consider both of those whenever. So which one do you prioritize, wind or thermals? Or they have to work in sync? Do you have to consider both of them equally?
You have to work in sync. You have to have a plan going in. There are apps out there you can use for your phone. You can get the prominent wind direction for that day. I will use that, and then I will take the spot that I'm picking. I will pick a spot because I have plenty up here. I'll pick a spot based on that wind, and then I will determine where I will be actually setting up. Because when you're deer hunting, especially a bigger mature deer, you got to worry about where that deer is going to walk, not the vicinity he's going to be. Especially when you're bow hunting, you can get away with it with a gun, but bow hunting you want to know where he's going to put his foot. So I will pick my spot based on that wind, and then I will see where I'm going to be, like in the tree, based on what I think the thermals are going to be doing.
So let's look at this. Like the deer are going to use the wind to their advantage. You have to use the wind to your advantage.
You got to think like a predator.
You do. So you can't have the perfect wind for you and expect the deer to come in, correct? Because you have to give them as much as you possibly can and be able to counter with your setup.
Correct. Levi, I talk to Levi quite a bit, especially during the season. We'll hop on the phone.
Levi Marshall?
Yep.
Yeah, I just talked to him the other day.
Great fella.
Yes.
We talk about this quite a bit. You got to give them a little bit.
Yes.
And some of the best hunts I've had, whether I was successful or not, was me giving the deer just a little bit of leeway, and then having it come together. Because it's not black and white with those bigger deer, especially. They got to have a little bit of a something. So I'll set up right where I think I can get away with it. Sometimes I won't, and that's just the nature of the game.
You got to float that line, though, right? And it's not. I mean, there is a point of no return with it, and that's the thing with hunting. I mean, there's hunting deer, and then there's hunting mature deer. It's, I mean, it's the strategy. I think is a little bit more involved, and you have to be really in tune with what's going on. And I think that's, one of the things that I see when I talk to a lot of people is, I'll give an example, which I talked about before, is the saddle hunting side of things, right? Like, I've got 360 degrees I can shoot. There's nowhere I can't. And people get a little bit greedy with their shot window. Like they've got all this shot window. I'm like, but a mature deer, you have a shot window for them, especially with the bow, because you're in their house, you're in their room, you're very close to them, so they're in tune with everything that's going on. And I think that people, especially new guys getting in with the saddle, is they think that because they have the freedom to shoot 360 degrees that they can in the woods, and I think that's detrimental to them being successful.
Very much so. I've seen a lot of, some guys will message me and talk about setups and things like that. And they'll send me a video from the tree. This is what I'm doing. I'm like, well, where do you think that deer is going to come from? Well, I don't know. I'm just setting up on sign. I'm like, well, that's something you got to think about when you go in to find that sign. And I'll do that a lot. If I don't have a plan, if where I'm hunting, the wind's not matching up, I'll just put my stuff on my back and I will start walking and look for. I can't remember the same guy that I talked to. I coined his phrase a minute ago. I can't remember his name, but he calls it MRS, most recent sign. I'll put the feet in the ground and start walking, find the most recent sign. Find that, recent droppings, acorn holes where they pop the hole of the acorn off the acorn and actually eat it. Look for that. The worst thing you can do as a new hunter is there's some deer sign. There's a track, and just climb a tree. Now you need to look at how fresh it is, because that acorn tree that you just found, it might have been dropping a month ago, and that sign is old.
That's hard to get through your head though, right? Because so one of the things that, you know, I've worried about is when is enough? How far is too far? When do you stop pushing in? And I think it's easy for guys going to the woods. You see the first little bit of sign and you're like, phew. Maybe as an observation hunt, but if you're actually going in there to kill a deer, I mean, it's how do you know when is enough whenever you go into the woods?
When you see wet droppings.
That's where you kind of draw the line and you're like, this is where I'm going to set up on, or I won't push past this.
Personally, that's what I do. However, when I see that, I'm not shimmying up a tree right there. At that point, if I'm standing there looking at wet droppings, I've already kind of defeated myself a little bit, because my feet are right there. I've left my scent where that deer is going to be. So at that point, stop, take a look around. Okay, I know deer are coming here. How are they getting here? And I will find that. So does, younger deer, most of them use the same trail. A lot of people do this. They'll go out and they'll find a deer trail. Like, oh, this is great. Look at this beaten down. There's tracks in it, and they'll climb up a tree. However, if you're out there to if you want to hunt a deer, that's fine. You can kill a deer that way. If you're wanting to hunt a mature buck, and I'm using that trail example, you find that trail, look to the left and right of it, 15, 20, 30 yards. Look for a strip of thicker vegetation, something like that, and chances are, I'm going to say probably 80% of the time, you're going to find another trail that is paralleling that other well-beaten path that a mature deer is going to walk.
Typically downwind of that. So that's a good point. So when you're in the woods looking, when you see that main trail, typically that's not the trail you should be after if you're hunting a mature deer.
Correct.
It should be.
That is data that I've picked up on. I could be wrong.
Levi said the same thing.
People could have different opinions. That's fine. Because deer are like people. They have different personalities. You'll have one deer that's a bully. Like, he'll run around trying to kick everybody's tail. You'll have one that's just a recluse, and you're not going to see him very much. It's going to be specific days that you're going to see him on his feet. Other deer are just real social. They want to be around other deer. They're just like people in that aspect. Getting back to the droppings, like when I stop and I see that and my fresh sign, my feet are here, I've already screwed this up. So I'm going to look, just like the example I used with the trail. I'm going to stop and look, where is the thickest, nastiest crap that I think a buck would use to get to this? Because I know where they want to go, but I've already muffed that up because I put my scent there. So I'm looking around and looking for a strip of thicker vegetation, just a little bit of micro terrain that a mature deer is going to use to get to that area if he's coming to feed or coming to check it for does.
So what about if whenever you're looking at wet droppings or whatnot, what if you know it's not from a mature deer, it's from a smaller deer? Are you bypassing that? Or are you like, okay, we're still got deer in this vicinity, I need to set up here as an observation hunt? Like, what's the approach there?
So generally, so you can tell a difference between buck droppings and doe droppings. Right. One is clumpy buck, and the other is going to be smaller pellets in a small pile. Generally, if I'm just out there to shoot a deer, I see wet droppings, I see acorn holes. I'm under a tree that's literally, it sounds like it's raining because acorns are falling. If I just want to shoot something, I'm gonna get the wind right, get the thermals right. I'm gonna climb a tree, and in most cases, I'm going to see deer during that hunt. If I'm out there specifically, I'm wanting to hunt a bigger deer, mature deer, and I see buck droppings along with doe droppings. Okay, well, a buck, don't know if it's mature or not, is using this. I'm gonna see who he is and check him out. Just like I said, get the wind right, check thermals, climb a tree. And
so, where you're set up there, you're in the woods. You're typically not hunting field edges and stuff.
Not much. When I go out of state, so when I go out of state, I will hunt field edges because we hunt in areas where there are farmers. They just want like big ag land. They want does shot. So I like eating deer. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna shoot those does. Generally, I'll do that on a field edge. I don't hunt field edges around here very much because I don't hunt a lot of private. But if you have access to private with field edges, I wouldn't set up on it if I'm trying to shoot a buck. If you see bucks out in that field in the evening, say, or right around this time of year, and you're watching them feed and out there messing around and doing stuff, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I want to know how they're going to get to that field. Because there are such things called staging areas. When they come from bed, they're going to move to that staging area. And in most cases, that staging area is going to involve some type of food. So I see a field edge. There are deer out there. Awesome. When the deer are not in the field, I'm going to go in there and find the closest feed tree that I can to that. Whether it be an oak tree, persimmon, something like that, and then set up right there.
Okay. So you're pushing back in a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. It's very easy to, like, whenever you see deer in a field, you're like, oh, I'm going to just go set up on the edge. Mm-hmm. You see that time and time again with a lot of people.
And you can do that, especially in the Midwest. I've got friends that live out in the Midwest that kill giants on field edges. But they're not just setting up anywhere. They're walking that field edge. They're looking for how the deer are accessing the field. And especially if you have, like, barbed wire fences, that's an easy funnel. You walk around, find a spot where the barbed wire is like pushed down a little bit, a low spot where they don't have to jump so high. And in most cases, those low spots, you'll find deer hair stuck in the barbed wire. Like, well, that's a textbook funnel right there. Or a pinch point, whatever you want to call it. And then you set up in that vicinity. Most of the time, I'll push back in. I like having a little bit of cover, and being on a field edge to me is just like, eh.
Very exposed. Yeah, you just feel naked up there.
That's just from hunting around here. I'm just used to being in thick stuff.
Yeah. I for whatever reason, whenever I hunt, I typically like to be in a little bit thicker stuff as well. I just feel safer. Mm-hmm. Like whenever I'm up there, I feel like I've got more. My shot opportunity, my shot window is typically drastically reduced. But as far as like back cover and concealment, I look for that whenever I'm setting up in a tree as much as I can, versus just because it's very easy to find like, wow, that's a great tree, and you just look like a lump hanging off the side of that thing.
Exactly, especially if you're in a saddle. Hunting in a saddle in big open timber. I mean, I've done it. I've been successful at it, but you just got to be so still.
Yeah.
And you can do that in a tree stand, sitting just stoic. But in a saddle, I've noticed, especially when I first started doing it, I fidget a little bit. Now I don't so much. But still, if you're not using the tree, if you're not putting the tree in between you and the deer where they're coming from, you're going to be exposed.
Right. And
you're just looking weird. Like if they happen to look up, they're like, what is that? And they'll sit there and stare at you until you move, and then they're gone.
They will, man. They'll sit there. Especially, what's the mature doe. They are so good at picking you off. Like, they'll come out, maybe separate from the group a little bit, and then it's just like they key in. They're like, something's off. That's not right. I'm going to stare at it till it moves. And you're like, dang it.
If you can kill a 6 to 7 year old doe in the woods, just like a mature nanny doe, I'm positive you can kill big deer anywhere you want to go, because they're just so smart.
They're tuned in. It's like they're so observant. Yeah, that's
especially if they have babies with them. The maternal thing kicks in.
Right.
The younger ones, the younger does that have babies, I've noticed they use, and it sounds bad to say, they use their young ones as drones.
They send them out first.
They're like,
yep.
The young one will be running around out there causing ruckus, and then the other one will come walking in, kind of looking around, like
from a different spot too. Yeah, that's one of the things. I can glass one of the fields out by my house, and I'll watch, and the first thing that come out are the little ones. They send them out, and you're like, they're out there hip hop skipping around. And then out from somewhere else comes, mama, and she's on a little bit more high alert. But
so a lot of times the doe, the mature one, is using the wind. The young ones aren't going to use the wind.
They're just out there winging it.
They're just running around they're like toddlers. Yep. They're doing toddler stuff. But the mature doe is going to use the wind. But yeah, they will send them out, kind of to check things out.
Yep. So, you know, we talk about wind, we talk about thermals. You know, you have to utilize those in sync to your advantage. You really have to be strategic in the way that you play them, you know, especially for your access, right? Mm-hmm. We harp on that time and time again. Your access is king. It should be the priority whenever you're trying to figure out how to get into the woods. And it's easy to get lazy with your access, mm-hmm. right? You know, I know I want to be here. It's, you know, it's short from here to mm-hmm. here, but you blow everything out. And I think that's one of the other things when you're looking at a map or looking at Onyx or whatever software or tools, e-scouting tools you're looking at, you also have to consider, Levi made a good point, where you park mm-hmm. and then how you access that block of woods or whatever to get to your stand, because it's very easy to take a shortcut and your hunt's over before it even starts. Mm-hmm.
So I use this as an example. One of the biggest deer I've seen, this was on an out-of-state trip, was scouting the parking area of this piece of public. Like he would sit there and earshot of the parking area where he would bed, and he would use the wind, obviously, and his eyes. And the only way and we figured it out. Never killed him, but we figured it out what he was doing. He would move around and get up on that hill and sit there and watch and look the entire day. Like, oh, they just walk back to the truck, and you would, like, camera proof of him doing it. He would get up and leave and start feeding around as soon as he saw people leaving.
The hunter becomes the hunted.
So, and then we never killed him, but what we did was figure out how to do it. And my buddy actually went and tried it, but it wasn't successful. He didn't even show his face that day. But the parking area, pulled in, and he took a big loop around and I walked down, and he took a big loop around. And if we could have kept doing that, I think we had to leave a couple of days after that. If we could have kept doing that, we probably could have killed that deer, just tricking him. And he was 130, 140 inch deer that was sitting like literally 100 yards from where everybody parks.
Really? He just knew the game. Mm-hmm. He knew the land mm-hmm. and knew where everybody was accessing it. And that was on public land. Mm-hmm. So were majority of the hunters there, so in that area, in that parking, were they accessing the woods from a pretty similar position?
Absolutely. Spot? There was one way in and one way out because we were in mountain country. So unless you want to go, side hilling, some crazy terrain, like you got to go in one way and out the other. So
it could be, that kind of works to a disadvantage for mm-hmm. you hunting in that particular area.
It does. However, you just got to get creative.
Right.
And me and Levi talk about this all the time, using water. You use a creek. Like wear knee boots, wear muck boots, waterproof, so your feet don't get cold and wet. But if you got a creek and you can walk through it, it's deep enough for you to walk through it so you can use that water to access where you want to be. It's running water. They're not going to catch. They're going to catch you where you enter and where you exit the water. But you walking through that stream, they're not going to catch you. And in mountain country, the drainages and the streams are in low areas. So your thermal is going to be pulling down the entire time, and then it's going to follow that creek wherever it goes.
Yeah, so you have to be strategic with how you access the wood. You kind of have to think differently than the majority of the hunters that are mm-hmm. out there, right? Especially if you're hunting public land because it's competitive. Mm-hmm. So that's a great way to, one, conceal your ground scent. But if you don't have access to something like that, do you wear rubber boots?
I do.
Always.
Yes, rubber snake-proof boots, especially around here, because I know you got tagged by one. Getting bit by a poisonous snake is not something that I really want to experience.
It'll ruin your season real quick, and for a couple of months, I can assure you.
So I wear the rubber snake-proof boots, yes. Not because it's concealing scent so much, because I'm touching those boots are going, and I keep them in my truck. Number one, because I want to track mud through the house or in the garage or anything like that. But like those boots smell like my truck. I'll take some scent stuff and spray on it. Most of the time I use like vanilla or I can't remember the name of the other extract that I use. and just spray my boots before going in the woods with it, especially the bottom, to try to maybe cover up what I can anyway, me walking in. But yeah, I will wear the rubber boots. A lot of people say they're scent free. Not the case.
Right.
If you're not cleaning them like correctly, or you're keeping them in your truck or in a tote in the back of your truck, something like that, it's still going to smell like human. You can't get away from that.
So back on access. So with that, when you're accessing a particular spot, you want to make sure that your access does not cross the trail that you're hunting, correct? Mm-hmm. I think that's easy for people to overlook as well. They just walk through the woods, or they think I've got rubber boots on, I can step past this. That's not necessarily the case. You want to make sure that you're not cutting directly through the path of the deer, or you need to know where the deer are traveling so you don't cut that path.
Correct. That's one of the worst things you can do as far as your access is to cross where you know, or where you think the deer are going to access as well. So they're going to get you. Sometimes you have to. In that case, like if you have to, use some type of cover scent. Vanilla extract works. It's not a sure thing, but it might provide some help, if you will. But one of the worst things you do is actually put your feet and your body where you think the deer are going to be. Yeah. But if you have to, also the cover scent thing, but don't be touching every tree, every branch. Try to make sure you don't have vegetation brushing against your clothing. You can use scent lock and all that other fun stuff. Does it work? I'm not sure. Right. You can't really mask the scent of a human.
You can try your best, but you are never going to remove human scent fully. If you're
not fully
off of you.
I think some of that technology does work. I've seen, and I personally own one. What's that? Ozonics.
Ozonics, yeah.
I've seen it work. I've seen it work on does. I've seen it work on mature deer, but it's not 100%. Like right. they get it. I've watched a mature deer catch it, catch my wind and catch the ozonics. It gives you a window, if you will. Like they'll get it and be like, what is that? And they just kind of stand there taking a second, and then I'm like, okay, that's weird. I don't like it, and they'll leave.
So do you think it's more so that they just are unsure of what it is, mm-hmm. and they haven't put it with that equates to danger?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or it's maybe making it's dumbing down your scent. So your scent with the ozonics is maybe making your scent seem like it's farther, or making you seem like you're farther away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
In all actuality, you're maybe 20 or 30 yards away. That's my assumption. I mean, somebody could correct me. I'm not sure. That's just what I've seen and the data that I've collected.
So as far as like early season goes, you talk about using like vanilla extract or something like that as a cover scent. Is there anything else that you use early season that would kind of go away or change as the season evolved, whether it's a cover scent, it's an attractant, a lure, or anything like that early season?
There's two things. As far as a cover scent, it's called, I can't remember the actual name of the brand that I use, but it's pine extract. You can get it on Amazon. It is strong, but we have a lot of pine trees around here. I would not suggest you putting that on your skin. It'll probably burn or create some type of rash, but you can take that and dilute it with a little bit of water and spray it on your boots as well. And it just smells like pine. So I will use that early season, especially. As far as attractants, like most of the time during the rut is when I will use some type of rutting buck or doe estrus to spray around. Like if I happen to touch some vegetation or something like that, I will, like in the vicinity where I'm hunting, I'll use that and I'll spray it on there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it works. That's just me trying to cover up me being sloppy. There's also a product called Evercalm.
Evercalm. So you told me about that a while ago. It comes in like a deodorant stick. Mm-hmm. That stuff actually does work well.
It does. And it smells like deer dander. So don't put it on your boots and then go walking through your house unless you want your wife, your significant other to get mad about your living room smell like deer. Yeah, that's not a good idea either. But yeah, you can spread that on your boots. The tree that you're actually climbing, like as you're touching the tree when you're at the bottom, you can put it on there. And it smells like deer dander. Like and it does work. It works pretty well from what I've seen. Let's see, early season. We'll talk about mock scrapes if you want.
Oh yeah,
that's when I'm making the mock scrapes is early season and during the summer.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. When do you start the mock scrape setup process? You said it's in early summers when you'll get out there and start them.
It depends. If I know there's a communal, because there's such thing called a communal scrape.
Right.
If I know, like in the areas that I'm hunting, I know there are 3 or 4 of them. I'll go check them and I'll freshen it up. What do I mean by freshen it up? I'm going to take a branch, scrape it out real good, and then I'm going to use the restroom in it. A lot of people are like, oh, that's human scent. Correct. However, human urine is just like any other urine. It is, the human scent's going to wear off of it, and at that point, it just smells like urine.
Right.
Don't want to get too graphic during the podcast, but yes, that's what I'll do, and I'll freshen it up in that manner. When I start making my actual like mock scrapes where I plan on hunting, I will make a mock scrape line and do the same thing. Find a licking branch or find a low hang, if it's never been used before, and that this is new vegetation, like this looks like this is a prominent deer trail. This vegetation has grown out across the trail. I'm going to walk up, break a couple of branches, scrape it out, and then use the restroom in it. And then if you hang a camera over it, you will see that they will start using it and checking it. And in most cases, in cases that I've seen, they'll use it year round and even up until 3 or 4 years after if you keep freshening it up.
Interesting. So are you hunting over the mock scrapes that you create?
I will sometimes if I don't have any other option, or if I have camera data of a buck using that, I'm going to hunt over it. Absolutely.
Do you see them hitting it during the day too? Mm-hmm. It's not just a nocturnal thing where they're coming at night, especially if there's been a human that set it up. So
yes. And in most cases, a lot of people think it's voodoo. I'll use moon phases, red moon. Every mature deer that I've killed here in eastern North Carolina has been on a red moon or a harvest moon. And that is basically days within the month that those deer, their feeding patterns are going to change because of the moon phase. And you'll see that they're up on their feet earlier or later in the morning, earlier in the afternoon or later in the morning. And that's when I'll take advantage of it. And every time that I've gotten a mature deer on camera around a mock scrape, it has been during red moon or the rut.
Interesting. I know you sent me, I can't remember the app you told me to use. I got to download it on my phone. But that's what you follow for the most part early season too, is you base your hunts around those red moons if you're after a specific mature deer.
I'll do it year round, truthfully, the whole season. I'm a, husband, father, still got a full-time job. A lot of times I can't make it into the woods whenever I want to. So I'm picking my days. Like I'm coming home from work, I check the moon phase. That's a good day. And then I coincide that with maybe a storm front pushing through or a cold front pushing through with a red moon. I'm calling mamas, hey, I'm not coming home till after dark. Is that all right? Making sure that everything's set up because I want to go to the woods.
That means everything is lined up for you with that. So if you've got, and so what about with like the red moon? Like how far, because the red moon is how many days?
Typically 4 to 5.
So is it any time within that window that you'll hunt it, or it's like, hey, the beginning, the first 2 days of the red moon is the best?
So the excuse me, the app I believe is called Moon Guide.
Yes, Moon Guide. That's what it is. Yeah.
And within the app, it'll give you and this is based on historical data, and because these are there's some research that goes into it, and they will give you the best days within that red moon phase as well, like your percentage. So you'll have a red moon, 4 to 5 day window, and it may be the middle 2 days. Oh, those are perfect. You need to be in the woods, or maybe the first 2. And the app will tell you what you want to know.
So
I don't really like to depend on technology too much, but if it works, it works.
So let me ask you this. So with the red moon and early season, typically you hear people say, don't hunt the mornings on early season, especially if you don't know exactly what the deer you're hunting is doing, right? Because you could really screw it up. But what about when you employ the red moon theory or concept into your hunting strategy, and it says the best time is going to be in that morning? Are you going to hunt that morning?
Absolutely.
You will. So you will hunt mornings during early season if everything lines up like it should. And I'm assuming you know how the deer is traversing or moving through wherever you're hunting.
Correct. So you got to take into account what that deer is doing. In most cases, they're going to bed during the day. They're going to feed at night. So that morning time frame is when they're coming back from feeding. So if I'm going to hunt that morning, I'm going to hunt close to bedding, because I'm not going to try to get in between or get right on the food source. High likelihood that that deer or buck is going to bust you via wind or just hearing you go in. So I'm getting away from where I know where I think he's going to be, and I'm going to go where I think he's going to want to be, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's just so many different moving parts and things to consider. What about as far as, everybody wants to hunt typically whenever they get an opportunity, especially whenever people are motivated earlier in the hunting season versus later. Is there times that you're like, I'm just not willing to go out and hunt? Like the conditions just aren't right? Or will you take, and if the conditions aren't right, you'll go hunt somewhere else?
There is a time when I just refuse.
Okay.
If I'm on an out of state hunt, and most of the time when I'm doing that, me and my, the guys that I go with, we're trying to line up our dates with the correct moon phase around here. And around here, I'm not going to hunt on a full moon.
You won't hunt on a full moon?
Absolutely not. So if I do, if it's during the rut, okay, I'll jump in the woods. But I'm going to be in there about 10 o'clock, and I'm going to hunt till about 2 because they're going to be chasing.
Okay.
But I've noticed around here, at least, that full moons just ain't it.
Really?
Just ain't it.
So if there was something that a time not to be in the woods for you, it would be whenever there's a full moon.
Full moon and when it's hot.
And when it's hot. It's always hot, though. When do you distinguish it's not hot?
70 and below.
What is that? I feel like those days are gone.
December.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's like the end of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, we're still wearing shorts on Christmas here. So it's weird, though, because like right now, it's super hot. I see so much deer activity currently. Right? It's unbelievable. It's 90 plus with like unreal humidity.
I was driving down the highway coming here, looked off into an ag field. It was a bean field. Beans were coming up, and there was a bachelor group of 7 bucks out there.
Yeah, there's a bachelor group of 3 back by my house. They're actually logging back there now, so I don't know what's going to happen.
And they were out there at it was 9:30.
Yeah,
just hanging out.
So how does that work? You're talking about like if it's too hot, like during the season, like what is too hot? I mean, how do you?
That's too hot for my discomfort. Okay, if it's too hot, it's a full moon, and I got a bad wind, I'm not going.
Everything's against you.
If it's too hot, but there's a storm front coming through, and I got a so-so wind, I'm probably going to go. If it's too hot, I'm going to be sweating. Perfect wind, storm front, I'm in there.
Okay, so there's factors that you're stacking in order to determine whether or not you're going to go in the woods, and obviously full moon, hot, bad wind is a no-go. Mm-hmm. It's just not worth it. You're just going to mess up whatever you're doing anyways.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like guys that blue collar guys that don't really have the ability to just hunt whenever they want. They're like, hey, this is my window. I can only hunt Saturday and Sunday. Those guys that are going out and they're hunting regardless of the conditions. I mean, what are some tips or strategies that you would have for them? Like if all odds are against them, I mean, they're just getting in the woods. Scout when you can. If you can't, put your stuff on your back. I would recommend saddle hunting just to stay as streamlined as you can. A lot of people don't like it. They find it uncomfortable. But you've seen my setup. We've done a video on it before. It's pretty streamlined. Extremely.
And just have what you need and go in the woods. Walk until you find MRS, most recent sign, climb a tree.
Yeah.
And there's times where I have to do that depending on my personal schedule and things of that nature. But the blue collar guys that can only hunt, certain days because of their work situation, family situation, that's what, if I wanted to go shoot a deer because I would like to eat deer meat that year, I'm going to look for the most recent sign, get the wind right, check thermal, which way it's going to be pulling depending on the sun, and then get in the tree.
Yeah. So sometimes you got to, that's your only option, right? You got to kind of create your own opportunity. And like they say, you ain't going to kill them if you're on the couch. So
very true. Deer live in the woods. You got to be in the woods to get them.
That's it, man. That's it. So what about whenever it comes to like setup strategy? You've nailed your access. Your wind is good. Thermals are right. Moon phase is good. You know you're going to be in the woods this day. You obviously need to know where bedding area is, right? You need to have that data already in the bank. How close are you looking to push in, or are you pushing in close to bedding or in bedding area during the early season?
During the early season, yes, I will push into bedding, because if you muff up a good deer early season, chances are you've got 2.5, 3 more months to try to nail him down.
Okay, so that sounds kind of like an aggressive strategy.
That is aggressive, but also early season, because deer, they move in patterns. Like, you're going to be doing one thing early season, they're not going to be doing that in November and December. Like, they're going to change. So the early season patterns, I'm not so like concerned with messing up that early season pattern, because you've got a narrow window for him to be doing that particular thing. And if you mess it up, well, you can still get on him later on in the year, because he's going to change where he's going.
So what does that window look like as far as early season, whenever they start to transition? Is it that second week of September whenever they start to shed that velvet? Mm-hmm. So your window of opportunity for early season to get on their summer pattern is pretty short. It's first 2 weeks of September.
Correct. Around here, people complain about, and people talk about the lull, and there is such thing as a lull. But it's not deer. It's not that deer aren't in the woods, because that's where they live.
Seems like they're not there.
But the lull that they're talking about is, well, I saw deer doing this in August and early September, and now they're gone. So it must be the lull. It's not really a lull. They're still there. They've just changed their patterns, and now you got to change yours and use your historical data, or just put boots on the ground and figure out what exactly they're doing, if that makes sense. It
does. And so it seems like early season, they're very active based off, because you're used to their summer pattern. You see them out in the field. They're not pressured really much at that point. And as, like we talked about, they start to shed that velvet as the season progresses. 2 weeks into September, 2 or 3 weeks, they start to change. What you hear a lot of people say, the deer are nocturnal. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that actually a thing, or is the pattern just shifted, or they're just not moving during the day and they're only moving at night? Like, is that the case?
That is so. Yes and no. I've seen mature deer that will not step out of their core area. I'll come back to that. They will not step out of their core area during daylight. So people call that deer nocturnal. Is he actually not getting up all day long and not doing anything unless it's dark? No, he's not. And people are getting that term nocturnal because they're basing what they're seeing off of camera stuff. If they're baiting, or if they've got a camera set up over a well-used place, yeah, he's going to come check that at night. Well, you got to find that deer's core area. So what you can do is set up your camera and see which way that deer's coming into that area that you have it set up on. Take another camera, or move that camera. Look for trails in and out of that area, put it there. It's called cascading cameras. Cascading cameras. And then use that. And if you don't get him on there, okay, move your camera again until you backtrack him to his core area. And you might be leaving scent. You might not get him that year, but guess what he's going to be doing the next year? They're creatures of habit. He'll probably be using that same area the next year.
So you have a strategy when it comes to trail camera use. You're not blindly throwing them out, because that's a pretty in-depth way of looking at least explained to me versus some of the other individuals that I've spoke with. So cascading cameras. Mm-hmm. So you're utilizing that to find the core area of where that deer lives. And that's, I'm assuming, in his bedding area, in his, where he's comfortable.
And in most cases, like around here, you don't really have to do it. Once you've been doing it for a little bit, you'll realize that mature deer are going to go where most people aren't going to want to go.
That nasty, thick stuff, yeah. Right?
So that's when you take into account edge. Deer are edge creatures. What I mean by edge is, around here we have a lot of warehouser land. So they'll go in, they'll cut timber, and they'll plant pines. That's creating an edge. When they cut that timber, they're planting pines. There's an edge from pine to hardwoods. Deer will use that edge. Another example of edge is clear cuts. Warehouser will go out or someone will go clear cut a property, and then people are like, oh man, they clear cut it. It's no good. That's not the case. It might not be good that year because if they clear cut it too close to season, it's going to stay bare. But during the spring, when you get that green up, that's a food source all day long. So that next September or that next October and the next season, that clear cut's going to be money. And that's an edge from hardwood to clear cut. It might be thick and nasty and above your head, but they will be using it.
So those are one of the key terrain features that you should identify whenever it comes to getting on and locating deer and where you should set up.
And so I've helped a few people around here that come from different areas. We live in a transient part of North Carolina. A lot of people that grow up in the Midwest or other places, like how do I deer hunt here? And the first thing I'll tell them is you find a transition line or find an edge and sit on it. I'm not going to give you the keys to the kingdom, but if you want to see a deer, that's how you do it. And a lot of them are successful in that manner.
That's interesting. Yeah. So they're in the process of clearing the land behind my house right now, which is a bummer because that's where we do all of our 3D events. So I don't know what that's going to look like next year, but it's a mess right now.
Long shots. Yeah.
I was thinking about setting up some steel targets and doing some long range rifle stuff back there. We'll see.
You have my attention.
Yeah. So those like transition areas, and hanging your stand, right? Whenever you're like the priority places that you're looking to hang your stands, is it in it's maybe it's a new area? Do you normally see it? Do you normally like try to key into, aside from just like food sources, are you looking from like the transition between like bedding and food or bedding and water? Are like those the priority places like in the woods that you're looking to hang stands?
So when I say transit, I'm literally talking about just the normal transition line. When I say that is just transition in type of vegetation,
right? I'm sorry, I guess I should restructure like the question is like, I meant like they're transitioning the way they transition through the woods, right? Or move through the woods, like whenever they're moving from like bedding to food. Like, is that one of the key, like when we talk stand placement, is that one of the key areas that you hang your stand versus hanging right on top of, their food source or right on top of bedding? Is that one of the areas that you would key in on to hang a stand?
Yes. So up here, I call it like a travel route or travel route.
I don't know
corridor.
Yeah.
So
all the T's. Sorry.
So deer as well as other animals, whatever you're hunting. And here in eastern North Carolina, we have plenty of stuff. We have bears. We're starting to get pigs, deer, obviously. They all need a few things. They need food, water, cover, and eventually the need to breed is going to take over. So I'll use all that to my advantage. So when I'm hunting, like, yes, I will hunt a travel corridor or travel route in between bedding or water, bedding and food. If you can find bedding and then food and water in the same vicinity, you're in the money.
That's a place to be.
And deer aren't going to drink salt water. So if you can find fresh water that's not brackish, then you're set up.
Interesting. So when it comes to like stand placement and like your setup, what do you look for as far as like tree selection for this? Because we're in a lot of pine trees, a lot of open areas, depending on where you're hunting at. Do you opt for something that is, you can get in the canopy, you can hunt a little bit lower, or are you trying to get as high as you possibly can? Because depending on who you talk to, there's mixed feelings on this. I hunt as high as I can, or, I want to be as low as I can, so that shot angle is not drastic.
So I change, depending on the scenario. If I'm hunting in a thick swamp, which I find myself in quite a bit, I'm probably not going to be higher than 12 feet because I want to be in the canopy. A lot of times I'll do what I call a hang and bang. Everybody else calls it that. I will literally never be in that tree before, go in there and find sign, climb a tree. And if I go back to that area, I might not get in that same tree again. But thick stuff, I'm trying to stay in the thick stuff. especially when you mentioned the traditional and compound thing at the first of the interview. If I'm in that thick stuff, most of the time I'm going to be carrying a longbow or recurve because I'm making short shots, 10 to 15 yards. I'm setting myself up for that. Now, if I'm in big woods, big open, like big timber, I'm going to get as high up as I can or try to find micro terrain. We mentioned that before. And within that big woods. So think some smaller trees that are maybe just like a smaller strip of timber that are within that big woods for two reasons: cover, and if a big deer is going to come into the big timber, he's going to use that micro terrain to get to the big timber and wind check for other deer to make sure that it's safe. And I've got a buddy, two buddies, Will and Ryan, shout out. They disagree. Like they say, oh, big mature deer are not gonna. I say that big mature deer aren't going to just walk out into big timber willy-nilly during the day. They disagree with me. Will, he got me last year because I actually killed a deer that way. But guess what? That deer used the micro terrain to walk into big timber. So we were both right in that case. But that's what I'll do. If I'm out and I have no micro terrain to use, but I know that deer are going to be coming there, I'm going to get up high as I can.
Interesting. You're a bigger individual. You're tall, what, 6'3", 6'4"?
Depending on what day it is,
yeah.
What I'm wearing. Yeah.
So what does your setup look like, and does it change like for like early season, like an early season setup versus late season? Does it evolve, or do you hunt? Is your pack out and setup similar?
It stays similar, especially around here. I don't need a lot of warming layers.
You need cooling layers.
So I'm in my pack, inside the pack, I'm carrying as little as I need, and most of the time I don't even carry rattling antlers around here because that's like the most tedious thing to actually pack in my small setup. But if I need them, I think I might need them, I'll strap them to the outside. But inside the pack, I'm not really worrying about warming layers that much. Water, rain gear, and that's probably about it. And then what I need to climb a tree.
Yeah, super simple. So you hunt out of a saddle, early season and late season, year round?
So I will. They call it hybrid. I have a hybrid tree stand. It's a 0.5.
The Lone Wolf?
Yep. And I will wear a saddle and hunt out of that if I'm going to be sitting all day, especially. So I can, take a break. I can sit down if I want. And then I use the saddle as a tether to the tree or a safety harness. But if I find myself wanting to stand up, I'll stand up for a couple of hours, whatever it may be. I'll turn around and saddle hunt out of it.
Yeah, that's the approach I take, and that's what I've kind of evolved to, because I like it's the best of both worlds. And I feel like I'm more still in a hang-on versus a saddle. I fidget a lot, and I feel like I'm a little bit more disciplined when I'm sitting down. It's just easier for me to stay still versus swaying back and forth. So I run that like XOP, like retrograde or the cold world, and I use that with my saddle so that I have the best of both worlds. I kind of like that approach, and it's still super light.
Mm-hmm. So getting back to we mentioned how high I go and the canopy and such. When you're setting up in cover, some people have a problem. They might be claustrophobic. They can't set up in something like really thick with branches around them, things of that nature. But when you do that and you're in a saddle, you can get away with a little bit more movement.
Yes.
Because it's thick. If you can't see the deer, in most cases, they can't see you unless you're up there waving or doing something weird.
Right.
But if you're just turning your head real slow, or maybe scratching your face or something like that, moving slow, not making like really intense movements, you can get away with a little bit of movement and a little bit of fidgeting, or just moving your feet if your feet happen to get uncomfortable. That's just an idea to take into account.
I'm a big believer in being in cover. I like it. I just feel more confident when I'm in the woods, when I've got especially good back cover. Mm-hmm. If I'm anticipating a deer coming from a specific direction, so that I'm not silhouetted or skylined. And typically I enjoy being able to hunt a little bit lower just because I like that less steep shot angle. And I don't like being in a tree that high. I'll be straight up. Like if I can be lower, I feel way better about it. That's how I killed my buck last year. I was like probably 8 to 10 feet off the ground, but I had really, really good cover. And there was not a lot of opportunity. There was one shot window for me, and that was it. And I didn't have, if he didn't come, I mean, I would have just had to watch him walk by if he did not go in that exact place. And it, you know, it all worked out well. So it was a cool hunt. But I like that ability to be kind of hidden in wherever I'm hunting from.
I mean, you mentioned if, you know, you might have to let him walk by. That's just something you got to be able to do.
Which is hard.
And when you leave the woods that day, you can say, hey, that was a successful hunt. Because I had a buck, mature deer, whatever it may be, walk 5 yards from me, and they didn't get me. That's still successful.
Yes.
So you just, and that's a learning point. Like, okay, what could I, and as you're riding home or as you're sitting at the house, what could I have done different? And then make that change when you go in the woods.
That's
the appeal. It's not learning from mistakes, just learning from data.
It's evolving. And that's again, you go back to bow hunting. That's, I think, the draw to it is the strategy, the cat and mouse game that it entails. I mean, you got to go. Yes, we see guys that go out their first year and they have success. But the guys that are repeatedly successful year after year, and we're talking on good deer, mature deer, you know, whether they're local or they're hunting out of state, they've got a lot of years in and they've developed a lot of skills over that time period that they employ, because bow hunting's tough.
It can be when you're trying to get an animal sub 20. Some people shoot farther. I've been known to do that. It's fun. But yeah, shooting an arrow into an animal is something that, and a lot of guys that I hunt with, and one of my good friends says, any deer with a bow and arrow is a trophy.
That's a good take.
There's a lot to that.
There it is. I mean,
whether it be compound or stick bow, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, stick bow's a whole nother level.
Yeah, because it takes. I mean, getting into the mechanics of archery, just a tad bit. It takes a lot to come to full draw, and to calm yourself down. That's one point I will throw out to guys. Like, they sometimes make bad shots, and then blame the equipment. No. You probably shouldn't blame the equipment. Could it be the equipment? Possibly. Or it could have been what's between your ears up here, because you come to full draw and then you're like, they think it's a Claymore mine in their hand. Like, they got to let it go. They got to let it go.
Hammer that trigger.
Just wham, let it go. No, come to full draw, acquire your peep, whatever you're doing. If you're shooting a traditional, there's, acquire your spot. Take a moment and then, say a prayer, say something to yourself, whatever you want to do, and then make the shot. Because when you take that quick moment, it's calming your what's between your ears down a little bit, and then you can make good decisions after that. And a good decision after a shot would be watching where the arrow hit and watching where that deer went.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for me, one of the ways that I've been able to kind of work around that is I have a process that I walk through whenever I draw the bow, because you see it, and it happened to me before the first time I've ever shot a deer, is I don't even think I looked through my peep sight. Right? There was no process that whenever I just got the full draw, I put what I thought my pin was on that deer and I hammered that trigger. But now I've got a process that I talk myself through. And because typically a deer is going to give you a second to make that shot. You don't have to rush it majority of the time. And me walking myself through my shot process, the big one being draw, get anchored, acquire my peep sight and put that pin in and pull through my shot, has really helped me be successful in making good shots on deer versus, that subpar shot because you blacked out and you don't know what happened.
And a lot of times people will make shoulder hits because they black out.
Yes.
So what you want to do when you're at full draw, there's a lot to it. That's why archery is so awesome. You're acquiring your peep, leveling out your bow if you're shooting compound. And then you're taking that moment, not just for yourself, but you want to make sure that front shoulder is going forward.
Right.
Because if it's back, that's, you might skirt the line, but you might hammer that shoulder. And depending on your arrow setup and the poundage you're shooting, if you hammer a shoulder, I've done it. That's just going to result in heartbreak.
Yes, it can. It can indeed. So let me ask you this. So when we talk about hunting mature deer in the early season, is there like what separates, say, like a 2.5-year-old deer from like something a little older, 3.5, 4.5, maybe 5.5-year-old deer? Are they the way they move through the woods? Is it just different than that younger? Obviously, we're not talking about a young deer, but like 2.5-year-old deer to like a 4.5-year-old deer. Is there a difference?
I've noticed, yes. It also depends on the situation. I hate saying that situational is dependent. Deer have moods depending on the time of year, and I've noticed here. Mature deer really don't respond to grunts that much, a grunt call. The younger ones will. So you can just go out and be in the tree and just blind call and make a couple of grunt calls. And the younger deer can just beeline straight to you. It sounds like a grown man walking through the woods. And they'll come out looking like, what's up? And especially if that deer's got an attitude, he's coming to look for a fight. The older mature deer, have I had it happen? Yes, depending on the mood. But in most cases, you're blind calling, and I don't blind call a lot for this reason. Mature deer is going to hear that. It's like, okay, that's another buck. I'm going to get downwind of it and check him out. If he gets downwind of your call, guess who he's downwind from?
Game over.
Hang it up.
Yeah, no, that's good. So what about like sign differences? Like whenever you're in the woods and you talk about most recent sign, is there a difference in early season, a mature deer's sign versus like a younger buck's sign?
There is, especially around here. So I want to say late September.
I guess so. And before we do that, let's define. So for you, what is a mature buck anyways? I guess I didn't even ask that in the beginning. What's the age that you set at that? Like roughly
4 and up.
4 and up. Okay.
That's me. Everybody else, other people can have, different viewpoints on it. I'm looking for 4-year-olds or higher. And you can tell if you've been in the woods, you've seen deer a lot, you can tell when you're looking at a 4-year-old or an up mature deer. Their body looks different. Their face looks different. Obviously their antlers look different. But in most cases, like you see the pot belly, the droopy chest right here. You're looking at an older deer. So that's what I'm looking for.
So as far as like early season mature deer, like what kind of sign are you after aside from just dropping? Like, so like a younger deer and versus that mature deer, that 4+, what's the sign? What's the sign difference that you'll notice? I mean, is it just the size of the tracks that are that much bigger? Is that like the main thing? Or is it, rub lines are different, scrapes?
So I found around here, so yes, the size of the tracks, obviously you want to check if you get a good muddy area, you got a trail, you want to check the size of the tracks if you can. Around here, the younger deer are going to be like teenagers. They're going to run around rubbing everything they can, rubbing their antlers on everything they can. So there will be rub lines on, saplings like this, literally everywhere. Yep. Just, there's one, and there's no distinct pattern to it. If you find one on a more mature tree, I'm talking like bigger tree, and it's in a line, like a distinct like travel line, like you can tell this deer is traveling this way because of the trees that he's rubbing, that's going to be your more mature buck around here, and I found pretty much everywhere else as well.
So are you setting up on that rub line in early season?
I will.
So that's a key indicator for you in the woods.
And if I find that, I'm gonna find a decent spot to possibly put a mock scrape.
Okay.
Because that's daddy's territory right there. Somebody just came in and made a scrape. I don't like it. I see it. I'm gonna go freshen it up and check it. Maybe once or twice in a week, maybe more often than that.
Right.
Just to see who it is. or see if they can't catch that younger deer in their territory.
So is that rub line, will you use that rub line all year, or does that rub line kind of become irrelevant as the season progresses?
It depends on if it's that deer's core area.
Okay, so if it's its core area, he's going to be there for majority of the season.
And that's another way to pin down a core area for a deer. So you got a big, huge, you got your terrain, you got your map here. You got a big, huge swamp or nasty area in the middle, and you've got 3 or 4 mature rub lines going in and out, like in a star pattern away from that. What do you think you just found?
The honey hole, huh? So will you hunt within that? Do you want to breach that border, or do you want to sit outside of that?
I want to sit outside of it.
Okay.
And dependent on, the wind and the situation is which one I'm going to sit, if that makes sense.
Yes. Because
later on during the season, if they're in that core area and you bust him, it's quite possibly he's not going to come back for a while. If you'll be lucky to see him again.
So you could ruin that spot with a quickness.
Could. Putting too much scent down and going in the same way and coming out the same way or different. Well, if you got a good entrance, we were talking, entrance. If you got a good entrance and you can get away with it, okay, cool. But don't come in from different.
All over the place. So for you, what do you see? I mean, because you talk to a lot of different people. I mean, you're kind of honestly, like, when I look at it, like local, like the mentor for like a massive amount of people within the area that we live, right? And I always reference you probably more than anybody when it comes to talking about somebody that is well versed in the woods. So you've dealt with guys that have an extensive background in bow hunting to new guys that hit you up. I know there's a lot of traditional guys that come to you for advice. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see guys make early season?
Ooh,
Besides all of them.
Besides all of them. Just early season?
I mean, it could be in general.
Not being properly prepared. Maybe somebody fishes all summer and they pick up their bow and then opening day run in the woods.
We see it all the time.
Yeah. And then they're like, man, that's a great deer just walked out in front of me and I missed him by, a mile. I'm like, well, is your bow in tune?
Weird.
Like, maybe you should take it to the shop and have that checked, which I happen to be doing today.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. And then just being sloppy, going in and out of the woods. That's a good question. There's quite a few things.
My thing is that I see, because obviously we're around guys all the time, especially new guys that come through the shop, get outfitted for bows. And one of my things that are key takeaways that I see from a lot of these guys is their lack of preparedness in the way they access to where they're going, right? So like, let's say they've identified what they consider key areas on a map. They've got their Onyx, they're using it. They've identified key areas that they want to go to. They don't consider their access as critically as they should because they're a little bit, maybe they're 1, uneducated on it. 2, they're just a little bit lazy when it comes to getting there. They want the shortest route possible. That's one of the things that I see more commonly with guys that, especially new guys coming into it.
And so I've got another one for you. That is, yes, absolutely spot on. The other one is depending, because you in North Carolina on private, you can bait. Depending too much on bait. Well, I'm throwing corn out and I'm getting deer all the time, and then when I go hunt, I never see anything. Why is that?
That's a good one.
Well, what is a deer going to use before they come to feed? Before they come munch on your corn, they're going to use their nose. So they're smelling you before. So you got to take into account your wind and your access. You hunt over bait, cool. I've done it, not a lot, but have done it. And if I have to, I will. Or if I can, I will. Depending on what I'm after. But being too dependent on corn or whatever you're using to throw out to try to go out and be successful, especially if you're trying to shoot a mature deer, then you will get pictures of mature deer over bait. Sometimes during the day, a lot of times at night.
Right.
Especially with a mature deer, what are they going to do before they come in? They're going to wind check it. Because you go in there, you put the bait out, you're putting your scent in the woods, and then you leave, and your scent's still there. As they come in, they're picking it up. Like, I don't like that, but he's feeding me, so I kind of, I'm going to come back. Well, they're going to wind check that before they come into it. So there's a way you can use the bait to your advantage. And how do you think that deer is going to access that area? And how can I get to that spot without him catching me with the wind?
Right. And that's where it comes down to the preparedness side of things, thinking ahead and setting, creating these strategies ahead of time to account for all those different variables, for all those different factors. That's the hard part, because everyone wants to get in the woods and go bow hunting. Mm-hmm. But in order to be successful at bow hunting, there's a lot of preparation. And I think that's the hard lessons that a lot of people learn quickly, is this is not as easy as I thought it was.
Yeah, it's not like nothing against the YouTube hunters or anything like that, or the hunting shows. I watch them. I grew up watching them, but it's not like that in real life.
I learned the longer I've been in this industry, and the more I have learned about some of the hunting shows and how they actually work. It's interesting.
It is interesting.
It's entertainment value for sure. And there's good things that are taken away from it.
There are some really good channels out there.
There are some,
including yours, that provide good information. Other podcasts and stuff like that that provide good information, but don't take it at face value.
Right.
Take it at face value, because there's a lot of other stuff that those guys are doing, whether they're sharing it with you or not, that they're in order for them to be successful on camera, that they're having to take into account. So that's what you got to figure out and do it yourself.
Right. And there's nothing beats boots on the ground. And the best way to learn, like we always say, is get out there and give it a shot for yourself. And, your failures are going to teach you more than any of your successes, I think, will, because honestly, most people reflect harder on failures than they do their success. They look at it a little bit deeper and, a little bit more critically, and break it down, and like, oh, well, this is a good lesson learned.
Absolutely.
A lot to take from it. So I got a quick one for you. Public or private land, which would you prefer? Which do you enjoy hunting more?
All right. That's a good one. Sorry about that. Hit the table with my knee.
Yeah, it's not
long-legged
down, so be careful.
Dependent on where I'm going or where I'm hunting. So where I hunt here, I'd like to call it public. I hunt a military installation. Public, but yet private at the same time. I do not hunt public around here very much, especially during gun season. Gun season runs from mid-October all the way to January 1st, and that is because of the dog hunting stuff. I have my own views on that. I'll keep it to myself. Enjoy the woods however you wish, but personally I don't go out on public around here, because it is pushed, and there are a number of clubs around here. It is pushed with dogs, and you can kill deer that are being pushed by dogs if you just go out there and sit in the woods, because the deer are being pushed around by the hounds. However, safety concerns, there's two reasons why. Number one, my time in the woods, I take it seriously, and it is an escape for me. Nothing against, and I've used dogs to hunt squirrels. I've got a great friend around here named Doug, older gentleman, raises some spectacular hounds for squirrel hunting. And me and my son and numerous other friends and children have been out there with him, and he's just an awesome guy. And I know there are some awesome, and I've also used hounds for bear, and for cat. But when I'm deer hunting, I don't really want to hear hounds baying in the morning all day long. It's going to give me a headache. That's just me. And then the second thing is the safety concern for me. They release hounds on one side. There'll be a line of orange-clad hunters on a road, and then they'll shoot whatever runs at them. With rifles, I'm not really gonna trust myself, trust somebody else with my safety. So I'm gonna probably stay out of there.
Yeah, that's a good call. We're flat here. There's no backstop. They're using rifles. It can get a little sketchy at times.
It can, and especially if the rifle's in the hands of somebody that's just not real sure of it. And nothing against him. If that's how you choose to spend your hunting season and your weekends, all for it.
Yeah, interesting. So the other thing too, you're a little bit bigger guy, like we talked about, real tall. As far as axle to axle length, I mean, because what's a good axle length for you whenever you're hunting? Because obviously you hunt with a long bow or a traditional bow, which is drastically longer than any compound bow. But when it comes to compound bows for taller guys, what's the ATA length that you tend to opt towards?
So I've found with a compound, I've got a 31-inch draw. I've found that I shoot a longer axle to axle compound better.
Right.
Because of the string angle, and depending on holding weight and such. So for me, I tend to lean towards a 33 to 35-ish axle to axle length bow. I can shoot a shorter bow if I need to. I've just found that I'm more accurate, especially at distance.
Yeah.
Because when I'm hunting with a compound, usually that's when I'm choosing to make a longer shot, and it just feels better to me.
Yeah. So interesting, 33 and 35. So Field and Stream just released their bow of the year, overall bow of the year winner, and it happened to be the PSE Mach 33. So the PSE Mach 33 took Outdoor, I don't know how much you keep up with this, but Outdoor Life named the PSE Mach 33 the bow of the year, and then Field and Stream just released their findings or their test comparison yesterday, and it won bow of the year. So interesting. PSE has been on fire when it comes to their carbon bows as far as just good shooting bows. With that EC2 cam, that's just been a very forgiving, good platform. But they also have a 35. So that'd be worth looking at.
Put one of those in my hands.
Yeah,
long.
It's a lot of bow.
I've shot carbon bows before, and I've never had a PSE carbon in my hand, so I might have to give that a shot.
Yeah, after this podcast, we're gonna have to go shoot some bows.
You got my attention.
There we go. Yeah, man. So, Joe, anything else? As far as one piece of advice that you'd give a new hunter getting into this, or a young hunter, a new hunter that's looking to get into this, ready to get after it in the early season, is there one piece of advice that you would offer them?
Absolutely. Don't be in a hurry. And I say that for two reasons. Don't be in a hurry to get to your tree stand and get up and, get in the woods, because mistakes can happen. You're climbing a tree. Be safe. But don't be in a hurry to obviously seek success, but don't get discouraged when you don't find it. Use your time in the woods, on your, 2, 3, 4 all day, if it's all day hunt, to learn something new. And the more you do that, the more you're going to pick up, the more you're going to learn, and it's a big puzzle. Start putting the pieces together, and then you're going to find success. It's going to happen. You just got to be willing to take what nature is giving you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Don't be out there on your phone.
It's hard not to. It's hard,
especially when you're a business owner. But don't be out there on your phone, and especially when you get animals around you, don't freak out and take the first shot. If you don't have a good shot, don't take it. You don't have to. You want success. But if you can't take a good shot, don't even put your bow in your hand. A lot of times when I'm in the woods and I've got deer around me, if there's not a big deer around me, I'm not even going to pick up my bow. I'm going to sit there and watch. Because if you watch animals in their habitat and what they're doing, while they're around you, which way their ears are which way their ears are turning, how they react whenever another animal's coming in, or maybe they pick up the scent of it like a raccoon or something like that. That's all learning points you can use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Wise words from the man himself, Mr. Joe Long.
I appreciate that.
A wealth of knowledge, very successful bow hunter, both the traditional side and compound. Just an incredible woodsman, and my go-to guy whenever I have questions.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe, thanks again for joining me today. This is going to be a great episode. There's a lot of great points here that I think people are really going to take and be able to use to their advantage this early season in the woods.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. All right, guys, that's another episode of the American Bowhunter, PSE's official podcast. So again, drop some comments, give us some feedback, let us know topics you want to cover, or if you have any questions for Joe, drop them in the comments. As always, make sure you guys are following along, and we will see you guys in the next episode.